The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We'll call the meeting to order for January 13th, 2022 of the Apple Valley City Council meeting, and I got 2022 right for the first time in the year, so that's off to a good start right there. I'd like to welcome both our in-person and virtual attendees this evening. For our in-person attendees, as your name is called for your item, please approach the podium to address the council. For our virtual attendees, if you have anything for the audience participation portion or any of our other items, please press the raise hand symbol and we'll ask the meeting organizer to notify us that you would like to speak. I will start our meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance and ask all to rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The second item on the agenda this evening is to approve the agenda. And Tom, do we have any changes?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We have no suggested revisions to tonight's agenda.
All right. With no changes, we would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Grendel, a second from Bergman. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is our audience participation portion of the meeting. This is for items that are not on the regular agenda. And these are, we have a total of 10 minutes for this section this evening. So looking at the sign-up sheet that was in the room, those who have asked to speak are related to an agenda item, so we'll get to those as we get to that item. So just know that that's how we'll take those. I would ask our meeting organizer if we have anybody in the virtual audience who would like to speak during this portion.
Mr. Mayor, we have no one who would like to speak.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in the in-person audience who would like to speak to any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will close the audience participation portion and we will move on to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and will be enacted with a single motion unless a council member or citizen requests to pull an item. Council members, are there any items you would like to pull? Citizens, are there any items? Meeting organizer, is there anyone in the virtual audience who would like to pull an item from consent?
Mr. Mayor, there's no one who would like to pull any items.
Thank you. With that, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Melander, second from Goodwin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent item carries. That brings us to our regular agenda item. Bear with me 1 second here as I flip a page or two. That brings us to 5A, which is provide direction on Chapter 91 of City Code regulating animals, and I believe Bruce is going to kick this item off.
Mr. Mayor and council members, the item tonight represents an effort probably throughout 2021 to first with an assignment to Urban Affairs to evaluate and discuss. Urban Affairs was the one that originally provided the direction back in 2014 to have an update to the regulations concerning animals, and within those to have them very specifically define farm animals and farm poultry as not being allowed in residential areas. It's come up from time to time over the last 6 years, and a petition was presented to the council in November of 2020, and Urban Affairs was directed to go back and take another look at that animal ordinance and provide further consideration. They met February to October of 21, And then the Planning Commission was also added from August to November of 21 because there were some guiding land use related considerations where some additional insight was sought. I just want to shout out, I'm doing the presentation this evening and have been integral to this over the last year, but a shout out to Alex Sharp, one of our planners who did quite a bit of the research and reporting that I'm able to share. And then second to Kathy Bodmer and from Planning and Kevin Freiberger from Public Works, who does our GIS. Their data search is going to be able to help me explain a little bit later in the presentation and how you would map 11,009 residential lots in Apple Valley and differentiate them by square footage. So with that, before you, the two actions to consider is whether there should be an update to Chapter 91 to allow the harboring of chickens on property other than agricultural zoned properties. And how you respond to number one then leads to number two. If council's decision is in the affirmative, then staff needs to be directed and city council to prepare a final draft ordinance amendment to Chapter 91. I'll say there are three categories that of residents that we heard from as staff, or testified at public hearings, or emailed with a position. And so what I'm going to go through is the support and the opposition. And others weren't so inclined to send in emails or testify at the public hearings, but it's okay as long as it doesn't affect me. And of course, we don't know that until it actually is in place, and it's those residents that live next to each other that might be affected. So with that said, those in support, if I could summarize, I am going to summarize, these are the points to share. Residents want to keep chickens as pets. Chickens should be allowed in residential areas and reasonably regulated. Do not require neighbor approval to have chickens, as that isn't required for other pets. Chickens don't smell or make noise. Chickens offer a nurturing environment. Locally sourced eggs are made possible. Positive community and neighborhood building results. Raising chickens is not inexpensive, and so therefore it will lead to the desire of best behaviors and thoughtful keepers. And finally, chickens offer insect control and ingest kitchen scraps, and we could always use one of those around the house. Then we also have the opposition that was also received in public hearing and an email. Agricultural property has been redeveloped and continues to be redeveloped to other uses. The Minnesota Board of Animal Health declares chickens as livestock, not pets. Chicken feces and coop run smell, and the owner is not confined to the property. Single-family lots are not large enough to accommodate this change. Patios, decks, and open windows are enjoyed without chickens. Outdoor living trends extend into the backyard like never before as people expand to the edges of their property for a variety of uses and enjoyment. Those that raise chickens resist chickens And this is people that grew up in rural areas, and they continue to share that, and they just don't think raising chickens is a good idea. Chickens attract predators. Egg sources already exist in Apple Valley. Larger and smaller lots are adjacent throughout the city, making them inseparable. And so it's really difficult to say, well, maybe we won't do something with the smaller lots. We can go a little bit larger than that. Well, those smaller lots are next to the little bit larger than that, are next to the larger than that still. And so it really becomes inseparable. And the decision was made in 2014 to not allow chickens and other agricultural animals in residential areas. A draft ordinance was prepared by Urban Affairs. Honestly, we didn't know the outcome and the direction, and they were willing to work together and to listen and to come up with, well, if challenged, what best practice examples can we use to guide us in having an ordinance? Some of the criteria that are included in that draft ordinance are that, and this is the one exception I'm going to explain more, chickens on all single-family properties or lots, or a lot with a minimum size of 40,000 square feet came from the Planning Commission. Best practice encourages 100 square feet for the coop and the run. No roosters or butchering. The number settled on by Urban Affairs was 5 hens to provide for the health of that group and to provide a sustaining group for the location. 30-foot side and rear setbacks were supported by the Planning Commission, 10-foot setbacks by the Urban Affairs Advisory Committee. A 2-year permit was required. Accessory structures should use building materials like other accessory structures. Typically, they blend in with the residents, and so it will be a point in the review of understanding what coop and run will look like. The permit may be revoked, and if it's revoked, then that applicant cannot apply for 3 years. Coop waste is not to be composted. It is to be disposed in weekly trash pickup. Chicken roaming is not permitted. They're to remain in the coop run. And to arrive at the best practice draft that's attached, there's no consideration of that tonight, but it's attached for you. 64 different ordinances were used as a resource by staff. From that, we can determine today, and this was assembled in late 2021, that 9 cities, including Apple Valley, of the 64 on that list, I'm going to break those down. 9 cities currently do not allow chickens. Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Chaska, Little Canada, Montrose, Osseo, St. Michael, and Woodbury. 55 cities allow chickens, but it was presented initially by those in support of chickens as well, they said yes at this city, no at that city. And so we wanted to understand, well, 55 cities regulate either aggressively or not so much the keeping of chickens. For example, 11 cities require a 50-foot setback from neighboring homes. So Bloomington, Burnsville, Eden Prairie, Newport, Prior Lake, Rosemont, St. Paul Park, Savage, Shakopee, Vadnais Heights, and White Bear Lake. I know I don't need to read this to you, but I'm trying to make a point that there are a number of cities similar to Apple Valley that really are concerned about the distance that coop and run would be kept and how far it's away from neighboring property. 6 cities evaluated the keeping of chickens in 2021 and either denied or have not yet approved chickens on single-family lots. Apple Valley, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Chaska, St. Michael, and Woodbury. 6 cities require neighbor approval, ranging from 65 to 100% approval, and those are listed there. 4 cities require a minimum lot size of greater than a half acre, and those are the 4 cities that require the larger lots. And then 2 cities require a public hearing or direct city council approval for every permit, and we're not suggesting that, but it's a direction that Farmington and St. Anthony took. So part of the data mining that we did looked at the residential areas in Apple Valley, and there's a color code for 10,000 and less, 10 to 15,000, 15 to 20,000, 20 to 30,000, 30 to 40,000, and then parcels over 40,000. And what I want to draw attention is that the Planning Commission really wrestled with, you know, lots that are 10 to 15,000 square feet, and there are 5,600 of them, are going to be the ones that are going to also have their garages and their recreational vehicles stored or other things on their property. And while it's not difficult to find a location for 100 square feet for a coop and a run, there just isn't enough room to provide for the use of properties or the crowding of uses on properties. And so and then the final point, which I made early on, is that when you look at the 5,600 yellow colored lots, you'll notice that they're very intermixed with the larger ones. And so if you go to a slightly larger size, like, oh, let's start at 15, or let's start at 20 or 30, and you end up with a lot of people that might have chickens, and even more people that wouldn't be allowed to have chickens because of the size of the lot. And from one perspective, good choices in neighborhoods that provide housing choices all over the city for a variety of sizes and lots and expense. And yet, as relates to this, it raises questions about the clustering that's difficult to separate. Urban Affairs, at the completion of its work, made a recommendation to the City Council that proposed that chickens be allowed on all eligible lots. And they did it by way of zoning districts, and those are all, what you'll see that they match pretty close. The colors are different, but they match pretty closely to what I was just talking about. And we focused on the R3, but there are, which is probably our largest number of lots at 75, 72, but it also integrates all the other sizes, and this was their approach, and they felt comfortable with it. On the other hand, the Planning Commission supported larger lot locations for chickens at 40,000 square feet and above, or the egg zoned parcels that still exist in the community, which are colored in yellow here. And you know, it wasn't until that moment when that came up and the direction that they felt pretty strongly about, made a recommendation to the council on it, that I realized that since the 1980s, we've allowed horses to be on R1 lots above 40,000 square feet. Well, and why would we do that? It's because of the legacy of agriculture in this community, and the horse ranches, the trails. The Minnesota Zoo used to be one of those trail experiences that people would use, and it just tried to hang on to for a while that legacy of the past. So this is meant to provide you the kind of background to have additional discussion, to make the points, and I'm available to you as a resource. If you get into technical best practice stuff, Alex is in the room, and these are the two actions to consider this evening.
Thanks, Bruce. Let's start here. Let's take comments from council, then we'll take comments from audience members and go that direction. So, and then we'll go back to a decision from there. Comments from council? Councilmember Goodwin.
I have a couple of miscellaneous questions I just want to get out of the way before we go any further. This has been brought up to me by a number of people. Now, chickens are considered a farm animal. Now, this would just impact chickens. If, in fact, let's say in theory, we gave the right to have them in all 11,000 single-family lots in Apple Valley. Legally, where would we stand if, as a city, if a month later, people who like ducks came in and said, I'd like ducks? What about pheasants? What about miniature pigs? What about miniature goats? And I'm wondering if, I hate to spring this on you, Michael, but what kind of an obligation would we have? And we're going to have a lot of discussion as we go on about lot size, and I understand that. But the basic question is, how do we tell people they can have one farm animal but not another? And does that open the city to all sorts of liability issues?
Well, the standard's the same in any aspect of how the city adopts regulations, and that is you have to have a rational basis as to what decision you're making. So if you want to differentiate between different types of animals, you have to have a rational basis as to why that particular animal would be allowed and one would not be allowed.
Well, I could just see this opening up to the courts for years. Because if I like goats or little pigs, I suppose I could come up with a rational basis for mini pigs. I suspect the folks that like mini pigs probably have a rational basis for them. People that like miniature goats probably have a rational basis. And this is just a very concerning issue. This particular question is a very, very concerning issue for me. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman
go ahead,
Goodwin. We have received requests for all of those items. Certainly not with the interest of the original petitioners or those that have spoken at public hearings or sent emails in support or in opposition. But it's a singular interest. It might be a household that wants to raise ducks, that wants to have goats. There's no pattern of interest. They've expressed an interest in wanting to explore that. So I would have to say the possibility that this would come up again and again for a different group of animals is a real possibility.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Melander.
Our son has a couple of acres south of Farmington and has had chickens for quite a while, and they run all over the place. And it's more of a rural area, and I mean, they're cute and they're funny to watch a chicken running around. You can't watch a chicken run and not put a smile on your face, but we're not rural anymore. I mean, Eaton's Ranch was out here. I remember when I was a kid. I'm not sure exactly where those trails were, but I rode horses on Eaton's Ranch. And it's nice to take a nod to our past, but we're past our past. We're a city now, and we're a darn good city. The other thing is the policing. It's how do you follow this up? You know, there's Lord knows. I mean, I see it enough with my business in commercial real estate. There's always people pushing the envelope. You know, if you say 5, they're going to have 6. You know, and who's going to count them? You know, who's going to have a chicken inventory? And they'll sneak a duck in there, or whatever. It's human nature, and there's just enough of them that it can spoil things for everybody else. I see it opening the door for a number of difficulties. And, you know, chickens are nice and they're cute, but even my son's getting tired of chickens now. So, you know, and about 3 years later, they stop laying eggs. So then you've got a bunch of pets. You feed them and you clean up the waste, but you don't get any more eggs. So, and you can't murder them because then they're pets by that point. So you're really not getting any benefit out of them either.
Thanks, Tom. We'll take, I'm sorry, Councilmember Grindle.
Oh, no, I just put it on, Mr. Mayor. First of all, a lot of comments that aren't here publicly. I mean, everywhere I went in Apple Valley, people are coming up and they don't want chickens. I mean, so that's not included in what we're seeing here tonight. But for St. Michael here, and I'm not sure that I really care about St. Michael, except that, not that I don't, but it says up on the following 4 cities have minimum lot requirements. Did St. Michael go with 4 acres? Because it says down in the 6 cities, it doesn't look like St. Michael did anything, but they actually went with 4 acres?
Alex?
That's what it
4?
says.
Okay.
He's done it.
4 acres.
Because, you know, it might say that, you know, a lot of cities allow chickens, but when you start looking at all the restrictions here, I mean, you know, I mean, I don't want to have city council approval every time somebody wants to have chickens. I don't want to have a public hearing every time somebody wants to have chickens. South St. Paul might allow chickens, but they only allow 20 properties. I mean, you know, at one point, when is it discriminatory that somebody who has an acre might be able to have a chicken, and so the 21st person comes in and, no, you can't have it. There's just so many different variables here, it's hard to, I don't know, decipher.
Yep. Councilmember Goodwin.
That was a question I was going to have our attorney, the city that only allows 20.
Yeah,
How does that work out? Let's say you get 20 people and then some guy comes in who's got 5 acres.
you get a resale market for chicken permits, it sounds like. I don't know.
And suddenly you say to this guy, well, no, we decided we're only going to have 20.
I can't say as to how St. Paul would regulate chickens in numbers. They do regulate the number of rental properties you can have per block.
Yeah.
So they haven't tested on their ability to regulate a specific number of activity that may occur in their city.
Interesting.
Well, I'd like to follow up on Councilmember Grendel's issue here. It's interesting because politically I've heard, well, we're one of 5 or 6 cities that don't allow chickens. You have 55 others that do, but they're all over the place. Burnsville, one of our neighbors who allows chickens, has a 50-foot setback. Now, what would that do to our 11,000 square foot lots? A 50-foot setback. So do they really have chickens? Tell me. I mean, politically, it sounds good if you want chickens to say there's only 5 or 6 cities that don't allow chickens, and the other 55 all allow them. No, it's just all over the place. And just comparing a few of the things, Councilmember Grendel brought up the issue of Vadnais Heights, St. Michael, Maple Grove approved them last year. They were one of the cities that hadn't approved chickens. They finally approved them this year. But again, a 1 acre minimum. And when I look at that map, and I'd like to go back to that map sometime, I don't have to do it right now, but when that colored map just kind of says it all. I've also looked at some of the emails I'd have from people that want chickens. You know, a lot of them live the smaller lots. Mm-hmm. So if you make a decision on lot size, are we being prejudicial against people that have smaller lots? Burnsville with a 50-foot setback. I don't know with the smaller lots how you get a 50-foot setback.
Right.
So it's one thing to say, oh yeah, Burnsville's got chickens, Lakeville has chickens, everybody's got chickens. But when you look at some of the statistics and some of the basics of this, it just really makes you wonder how many chickens are there. And the one city, and I mentioned it earlier, you mentioned it, that said, okay, we're going to allow 20, and you're the 21st guy and you got a 5-acre lot and they're not going to give you chickens. I can just see liability in this issue, and I can see lawsuits and everything come out of this thing like you wouldn't believe.
Thanks, Tom. We did have 2 people who asked to speak on the issue. They'd asked for some time. I'd like them to give them the chance to do that. The order I went in was somewhat intentional. I wanted you all to hear a little of the conversation here before we gave you the chance to speak. I thought that was the best way to do that. We will allow council members to talk about that. We've been through multiple hearings on this, so I don't intend this to drag on for a long time, but certainly want to give you guys a chance to speak. Before you come up, though, Bruce, one question. I noticed we had 1 or 2 cities that talked about neighbor approval, right, or a handful of. Boy, that sounds really cool, but how the heck does that work? Do you get to go revoke your approval when you hate your neighbor, new neighbor move? I mean, that just sounds really, really messy, so I'm glad we're not talking about that. Maybe that's a city attorney question.
Mayor, I can't address that one. Statutory cities, you cannot leave decisions to your neighbors. Only the council can decide whether regulation gets effective.
Thank you. It just sounds yucky and a good way to really hate your neighbors when you're all said and done, so.
But what it says is that some people have passed ordinances, and some cities have passed ordinances that say you gotta have a neighbor approval. Which you're saying if they're statutory cities, that's really invalid.
That is correct. Some charter cities do allow it under their charters, but
I would-
statutory cities.
Yeah, charter cities are different, I
I
understand
would-
that,
I would
but
say there's a-
statutory cities.
Correct.
Burnsville, for example.
Correct.
There's also a difference between what we can pass and what we can enforce, right? We can pass anything we want. We might not be able to act on it and enforce it. So just maybe means they've never been challenged on those requirements too, right? So,
Yeah.
Bruce, would you mind if we invited our guests
No,
up? I'm just going in the order signed up. So we have Cynthia, is it Bean? Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay, no, that's fine. You know, I'm not going to force you to come up. You were on the list, so I didn't want to exclude you. So we happy, is it Andy? Pronounce your last name for me, Andy. Say that again?
Reese-Graff.
Thank you. And if it's easier to speak without your mask,
is that
please
okay?
feel free to do that.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me. Like I said, my name is Andy Reese-Graff, and I live over on 14345 Evelyn Avenue. And I'm in one of the planned development sections, so I got a smaller lot size, about 0.2 acres, so it's close to 9,000 square feet, I believe, so definitely one of the smaller lots. And your comment earlier about, or it might have been your comment about people like that have smaller lots needing place for extra cars and extra boats, and I don't know, I don't have all that, so that doesn't pertain to me. I mean, so anyway, so I have the proposed ordinance in hand here. I've read through it, and we've talked about, the Urban Affairs Committee meeting 8 times over the last year. They put a lot of work into that ordinance. They spent a lot of time going over the best practices information that was brought up, over the U of M extension gentleman came and spoke, practices from other cities, looking at their ordinances, seeing what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And I feel like we're just kind of ignoring all the work they did. From what I've just heard, they put a lot of work into this, and they came up with an ordinance that is very reasonable, and I think it's fair to everybody. It has language in there for enforcement, and it's just very clear cut. And so they met 8 times, and then the planning commission all of a sudden gets brought into the scenario much further down the road. And I understand the reason why, and it was to look closer at these lot setbacks and stuff, but they had no background on the previous 8-ish meetings that the Urban Affairs Committee was involved with. And what I don't understand is they were they were asked to investigate land use aspects related to zoning, lot size setbacks, and homeowners association. But yet the first thing they vote on is whether or not they should allow backyard chickens. And that's like, why are they even voting on that when they weren't asked, should we, yes or no, your decision, should you have backyard chickens or not? They were specifically asked to look at the zoning, lot sizes, and homeowners association. So they did that, but the very first thing that they vote on is, should we allow backyard chickens or not? So then that's the thing that gets out there now. It's, and seven against, 0 for, the planning commission does not think that backyard chickens should be allowed. It just doesn't seem like the right process to me. They weren't informed.
I would say the final decision on that is this body here, so we take the advisory commission's
Yep.
recommendations, and we are the ones making the decision.
Yep. So basically what I want to say is I would ask that you not incorporate the planning commission's recommendation, because the 40,000 square feet is just like ridiculous. Nobody would be able to have chickens at that point. We just wasted a year of everybody's time. It's the Urban Affairs Committee, all the work they did would be pointless.
Wait till they're done.
So yes, I would just ask that you vote on the Urban Affairs Committee's recommendation.
Our action item here tonight, though, is are we going to go forward at all, not to take specific action on a specific ordinance? So that's the only action item on the agenda
Just
tonight.
move forward or not?
If we're going to move forward or not. So we're not here to talk about which ordinance language, those kind of things. Those were draft ordinances that came as part of their process. So this is, I think Bruce has it on the screen. So right, so this is, item 1 is our action item. If that's a yes, then we go on to final ordinance drafting, and that would come back to this body at
Okay,
that
so
point to make that
then-
decision, so.
Specific to the planning commission, I
Right.
would ask that you,
Yep. What staff is looking for tonight is our decision of, do they go forward, do more work on final ordinance? Or does this body say, no, we're not going to allow chickens, and then this is done, right? And then we don't allow chickens. I mean, so that's really the direction we're talking about taking this evening.
okay,
Yep. Just to be clear, this is
Yeah.
not, unless you do this every day or have done this for 10 years,
Right.
right? It's okay, what are we doing tonight? What's later? So I think it's a fair question. I wouldn't say any of the work of Urban Affairs has been ignored, right? In this condensed presentation, you didn't see what we've gone through in many informal meetings
Right.
and many updates
Right.
along the way, right? So we've had that. Some of us have been at those meetings. We've seen the report out from those meetings. We've seen those presentations. So it's not that that's been ignored or not been considered in here. It's a matter of, right, I can't get a year's worth of work into a 1-hour council meeting type of thing either. So, thank you.
just
Oh,
last
yep.
comment. Please, I would say, allow all single-family homes to allow chickens. That's the fairest thing, if you decide to allow chickens to be, I guess, approved, or, let everybody have the opportunity, not just people that have 40,000.
And I think you've certainly heard that sentiment here, right? An overly restrictive ordinance doesn't actually do anything except, as Councilmember Goodwin said, allow you to say you allow chickens, which is not the kind of government we typically try to run. Like, if we're going to do it, let's do it for real, not so we can say we said yes or no.
All right, thank you,
you.
Mayor and Commissioner.
Thank you. Bruce, why don't you come back up? Councilmember Goodwin had something. If we have other comments, I'll take them, so I'm
No,
going to let,
I was, no.
oh, go ahead.
I,
Oh.
I could maybe take her time. She's gonna speak.
Feel free to come, feel free to come. Oh, you're-
Thank you.
I didn't want, I wanted to let people talk before
Okay.
I had.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you had a specific response. So, yeah, the light on or off doesn't tell me what you want all the time, right? So if you could, since you're on the list, can you just give us your name and address for the record?
Sure.
And feel free to take the mask off, so
Thank
it's a
you.
little easier to speak.
Thanks. My name is Colette DeFaw Jonkis, and this is my son Oliver Jonkis.
Welcome.
Thank you. And we appreciate all of the work that you have all done over the past year or so on all of this. And, but we just wanted to come up and kind of talk about the difference between the slippery slope argument versus like what we're looking at pragmatically when it comes to allowing chickens in Apple Valley. So I think you can make the case for that slippery slope argument where we're gonna face legal challenges, we're gonna face this or that, but I think that it would make some sense to look at the 66 cities that do this in our sort of our local area and say, what have they faced in terms of legal litigation or legal issues with allowing other farm animals into their thing? I know that a lot of the cities that allow chickens have not been challenged on other agricultural animals being allowed in their cities. And I know that Apple Valley, we actually still allow some horses and other agricultural animals here. But I don't think that allowing chickens has led them to a slippery slope in terms of having to allow other agricultural animals. And I would also say that just in your consideration, to remember that when we're talking about allowing people to have chickens, we're probably the number of people in the city that are actually going to do it when you allow it, it's going to be just a tiny percentage of people that are going to do it. So you're not looking, when you're looking at your lot sizes and stuff, you're not backing a chicken coop up to a chicken coop up to a chicken coop. You're looking at maybe a development that would have maybe 3 families that would take on that kind of responsibility. Because the requirements that the Urban Affairs Committee has put forth, there are a lot of things, a lot of necessary things that you would have to do in order to have chickens. So it's not easy to have them. So we're not looking at like all of a sudden the city of Apple Valley is going to be overrun by chickens or families that want to have chickens. And then I would also just say that when you're looking at the smaller lot sizes too, these are areas where you can have 3 dogs. You can have several cats in your house, and you can have 3 dogs on a lot size of 11,000 square feet. 3 to 5 chickens on a lot size of 11,000 square feet is nothing. And when you look at the amount that those animals poop, I mean, a dog compared to a chicken is a lot less. And what else did you have to say? Oh, one other thing I was going to say was another addition to why kids want to have chickens in the cities is because with Future Farmers of America, my son would love to be able to show chickens at the state fair. And we used to live out in Wisconsin, and we had a flock of 36 chickens, and he loved them. We moved into the city for what it has to offer in terms of education and that kind of thing. We actually really miss our chickens, and I think we could do a really good job. And it would teach him responsibility, and it would be really great. And Oliver might have something to add.
I would just like to add, I believe it was Councilmember Goodwin who brought up the point of these chickens you aren't able to kill them, and they only lay eggs for about 4 years. And I think this also serves. Or that wasn't.
That was Tom. That was Tom. Wrong Tom. I mean, easy.
Tom, yeah.
Interchangeable.
Anyway, my point was, I think this also serves as another great way to separate the people who want to do this for
as a pet.
As a pet versus the people who want to try to turn this into into a form of more agriculture.
Yep.
So I think that this is a great way that would be a great way to actually separate and also in a way minimize the risk of having irresponsible owners who are just farming their chickens for the food, versus those who just want them as pets.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Perfect. And we've had chickens, like I said, for like 10 years when we lived out in the country. Now, we lived on only like an acre and a half, and we had a flock of 36 chickens. We had neighbors that were very close to us. We never had complaints, we never had issues, we treated them like family members. And we would, if anybody had any questions about that, obviously it was zoned differently, but just like pragmatically, if you had questions or anything about keeping the chickens, we could be a good resource. We could tell you how to do it in the city and make it work too, so.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you.
And thank you for coming in and speaking, so.
Yeah,
I'm
appreciate it.
impressed at the size of the battery you have to charge your phone there too. I hope that gets you through the whole meeting.
Okay, he loves chickens and tech, so.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce is back up.
Mr.
Anything to add before we take further
Yeah,
comments?
just a couple of things. This comment that the planning commission was not as completely informed, they might have received the materials repackaged because Urban Affairs received them early on, and they were large packets of materials, and the materials that went to the planning commission were more in a summary form. But they received the draft ordinance that Urban Affairs had developed, and they received the best practices and the background information that Urban Affairs received. And so I just wanted to clarify that. And you're absolutely right, because I wrote those action items for the Planning Commission. The first question was, do you support chickens in Apple Valley? And I didn't know how they were going to respond. It's the exact same question I asked Urban Affairs. That's how I started their action evening relating to support and recommendation for the ordinance. Do you support chickens? And actually, if anything, it's consistent, not an arbitrary shot. And I think maybe I just wanted to clarify that the Planning Commission focused on setbacks, focused on lot size, and responded to what they thought about the keeping of chickens.
Perfect. Thank you, Bruce. Councilmember Melander.
Just quickly and anecdotally, our son had a fox get into the backyard and slaughtered half the chickens in about 4 minutes flat, which was very traumatic for the kids. Chickens are cute and all, but that was nasty. And we've had foxes in other neighborhoods that I've lived in, and when the foxes get in, they don't draw the line at chickens. And coyote, I mean, they'll take dogs and cats, and we've had other neighbors that are afraid of that, and those animals already exist. So you might think the chickens are cute, but you lose Fido, and suddenly they're not so cute anymore. So I think it's again, leading to other potential problems. So.
I don't know who was first over here, so I'll just go down the line. Councilmember Bergman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The couple comments that I would like to make is this. I came first of all from the Planning Commission and know how well and how diligent they do their work. I would like to commend the last two speakers that spoke. I was in the room in Urban Affairs when they both got up to speak, and the son did an outstanding job of the presentation. I walked away going, very impressed with the demeanor and how they handled the situation that was given to them and what they wanted to accomplish. I walked out of that meeting going, okay, let's look at it a lot of different ways. I looked at it a lot of different ways, and I kept coming back to every meeting that Urban Affairs had. I did not go in the room when they voted on their results of what they had. When it went to the Planning Commission, as one of our speakers has stated about the Planning Commission, I listened to that on television. I did come into Bruce's office, Alex and Bruce and the entourage of what is in Planning Commission, because I wanted to question about, I was looking at moving to a different lot in Apple Valley. And it was very, very small. And I go, whoa. And even with guidelines that were there, was not going to, if I decided I wanted chickens, I couldn't have chickens because of the way the lots are set up. So to all of you that gave your input, and we've looked at it in 2014, I was on the council in 2014, and when we looked at, and when staff and councils looked at it for basically the last 2 years, we have to make a decision. So thanks for letting me sit in on all your dialogue and for your due diligence to come forward tonight and express what you would like. So thank you to all of you.
Councilmember Goodwin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple comments. There was some comments about how did the Planning Commission get involved in this. And they didn't have the background that the Urban Affairs Committee looked at. And that's true. But on the other hand, the Urban Affairs Committee did not have the background that the Planning Commission had on land use. For example, we already have a number of regulations in this city for setbacks, don't we?
We do.
We do. Now, if we gave all 11,000 lots the right to have chickens, I just don't see how some of them could possibly have chickens and obey our setback regulations that we have now. So what would we have to do? Change all those regulations? And so I, for one, am very happy that the Planning Commission did get involved. I've often wondered when I think about all the other cities that have chickens, and it is interesting. I mean, do you really have chickens if you only give them to people with 4-acre lots?
Yeah.
Do you really have chickens? No, you don't have chickens. Do you really have chickens if you only give them to people with 1-acre lots? No, you don't. Let's be honest here. And I have to tell you, if in fact we decided to get down and decided to start saying, we started splitting hairs and saying, well, let's you know, as a compromise, let's allow some chickens. You know who get lost? You don't get left out? The small lots. It's that simple. They would get left out. Because if you have 11,000 lots and 5,000, some of them are already small lots and would probably, if some of them had chickens, they would be breaking regulations that we've already had in place. The issue just can get to be overwhelming. So I just want to say too that if we did make a decision to split based on lot size, which would be a compromise that I understand elected officials making all the time, I think a lot of the people that were most interested in chickens, like some of our speakers, would be left out because they're in the smaller lots.
Thank you. Councilmember Grindal.
Thank you. This isn't why I put my light on, but speaking of coyotes, I texted a neighbor yesterday saying, watch out for your little dog. A coyote was just going through the backyard, and he said, oh, there's 3 coyotes in the backyard all the time. Little aside. So could anybody at Cobblestone have chickens with a 50-foot setback?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Grindal, Cobblestone was actually discussed quite a bit, and they are small lots. It is very difficult, and they were an example that Planning Commission used in discussing whether it's sport courts, swimming pools, however you filled your lots, it becomes a challenge to meet the larger setback requirements. And I think a point that we confirmed that because the Planning Commission also raised it, is that homeowners association, regardless of what the city does, it's choice. Homeowners associations can choose not to allow the
That's right.
keeping
Allow
of
or not
chickens
allow.
in their locations. And we have several, but we only have feedback from what the Cobblestone Homeowners Association thinks.
Thank you, Bruce. We've certainly had a lot of thought on this, both 2014 and now. Boy, 2014 seems like just yesterday, right, that we did this, but it's been a long time. So we're at the point we need to make a decision on what we want to do kind of going forward. So I would look to the council to do that. But yeah, before I do that, though, it was Colin, is that right? Did I get your name right?
Oh, Colette.
No, I'm sorry, your son?
Oliver.
Oliver. Wow, I butchered that. It's been a long day.
Put them both together.
There you go. But one, I just want to say before we do any of this, one, it takes courage to come and do this, right? Especially not as an adult, not doing this. You spoke very well. Thank you for being here. I mean, this stuff works when people participate. No matter what the outcome is, this stuff works when people participate. And so keep participating, right? Because that's the only way we get to do things. You saw me get up because my normal little basket of goodies wasn't here, but I did want to, for whatever it's worth, offer you a small something for coming in, which is a City of Apple Valley 50th anniversary pin. And just thank you for coming in and sharing those thoughts tonight.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
And let me know how Captiva and Sanibel are doing later.
Anyway.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, do you mind coming forward? I don't know if anybody watching, I just don't want anybody remotely to miss your words, so.
Not at all. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, because I have encouraged my son from the very beginning to be part of the process and to participate. So I thank you for that positive reinforcement. I just wanted to add also, in terms of lot size, please don't use that as an excuse to say no. Because as somebody who comes from a smaller lot size, I'm okay with that. If there are people that have a bigger lot size and we can use that to gain information for the city to show that it potentially may work as somebody who has a smaller lot size, I'm okay with that. If that's the data the city needs to move forward, we're good with that. And then I would just say, going back to 2014 and kind of reviewing the data on 2014 and the process that we went through, the biggest argument in 2014 was that property value would be affected by having chickens.
I think we've disputed that on just about every, whether it's a multifamily development, whether it's anything else. I don't think there's any data that's out there that shows that these kind of changes at least definitively impact values. I think we've just continued to see that over the years. Now, I would say a neighborhood of not poorly maintained chickens certainly might impact values right in that neighborhood, right? What goes on directly around you certainly does. But I think as a whole, that argument is a little weak.
Okay. So, I just wanted to remind that that was a powerful thing in 2014. But again, thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. Councilmember, try that again. Councilmember Grendel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that it is real that people are asking me, if you allow chickens, can I have a goat? I want to get rid of the buckthorn. This is real out there that I've had probably 3 people ask if goats would be next, just so you know.
Perfect. So let's get to, at some point, good discussion. We got to get to a decision, and comments have kind of died down. So what is the desire of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we do not allow chickens except for the R1 zone.
So that would be, that's the agricultural zone. Thank you.
Right.
Gotcha. So we have the motion to not amend code to allow the harboring of chickens on properties other than agricultural zone.
Yes.
Correct?
I would second that.
A motion from Councilmember Melander, a second from Councilmember Goodwin. Any discussion around this item? I think that the thing I would add is to through all of this, as we hear from those who want and those who don't want, we always tend to hear from the small groups on one side and the other. I mean, our job is to take that and then represent everybody. And that's the hard part, right? Because you're trying to represent a group of people you don't hear from until there's a problem. And I think that was pretty clear in many, well, it's fine unless it bothers me. Well, what do we do when it bothers you? Right? So I think that's the hard part. What we're asking for here is not to allow something that is there, and I completely get your larger acreage comment, right? When you moved in, that was allowed. The neighbors all knew that was allowed when you moved in. Here, I think the expectation was different. You moved into a residential area. So we're trying to represent those who are asking for a change, not kind of asking for status quo as well. So I would say we've discussed this actually much longer than we did in 2014, I think with better data, with better things. And I appreciate everybody's work that went into that. So with that, I would go ahead and call the question and ask a motion from Belander, a second from Goodwin. All in favor of that motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That one carries unanimously. And again, thank you to everybody who worked on this and came and spoke this evening.
Mr. Chair,
What else do you have for us here?
Because of that action, there's no need to act on number 2.
Correct. That was my assumption. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to 5B, which is the resolution to adopt, to appoint an acting mayor for 2022. And Pam, would you like to take this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Minnesota statute requires the city council at its first meeting of each year choose an acting mayor from its members, and the acting mayor shall perform the duties of the mayor during the disability or absence of the mayor from the city, or in the case of a vacancy in the office of the mayor, until a successor has been appointed and qualifies. There's a draft resolution in your packet that will be completed according to the city council's decision. The council should make a motion adopting the resolution appointing a member as acting mayor for 2022.
Thank you, Pam. I would like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Goodwin as acting mayor for 2022.
I'll second that.
Will you accept? That's the question.
We don't know. What are you working for?
Well, I would accept on one condition.
Can I revoke my motion?
That if we get to the point where the mayor starts to say he's an all-powerful, all-knowing soul, I will resign.
So that's all I have to do to get you to resign? Okay, just checking, making sure I understood the rules of the game.
I think what I'm saying is if you start running this thing like you're a full-time mayor, we're just going to have to think about it.
All right, we'll cross
So
that
anyway,
bridge.
I would accept it if you understand the duties, the statutory duties of a statutory city.
I will leave that to your judgment, the city attorney, if I have violated my statutory duties.
I might be asking in the future for the city attorney to read that ordinance to you.
That'd be fine. I always enjoy story hour. So with that, I made the motion, and Councilmember Grendall seconded that motion to appoint Councilmember Goodwin as acting mayor. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That takes us to staff communications. Tom, I know we've got at least one thing from our long-suffering park and rec director. He's going to try to make winter fun for us, I understand.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, those watching at home, I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming event, Midwinterfest, scheduled for Saturday, February 5th. All of the events will be held at Johnny Cake Park West, which is new. Usually the events held at the community center, Hayes Park. So if you're planning to attend, please make that adjustment to your plans and come join us at Johnny Cake Park west. In the morning, the youth hockey associations from Eastview and Apple Valley will be sponsoring Mite Jamboree at the 2 hockey rinks. Dakota County will be there offering opportunities for people to learn how to snowshoe and use some of the snowshoe equipment that they will bring along. The police and fire department is having a scavenger hunt, and details about that can be found online. And then we'll also be having our traditional medallion hunt with the medallion hid in one of our parks within the city of Apple Valley. And then in the afternoon, there will be a number of events happening, everything from horse wagon rides, frozen kite flying, a beanbag toss tournament. We'll have 3 temporary disc golf holes set up for people to participate in if they want to. Our police and fire departments will be on site so that the public can ask them questions about their public safety needs. We will be having some snowman building contest. We've created a garden cart train ride that will be pulled by the police department's UTV and staffed by the police department. You can skate with Klondike. There'll be recycle bin races, and then the Rotary Club will be selling hot chocolate and cider. They will also be doing a 50-50 raffle, so people that would want to participate in that will have a chance to buy tickets at the event and potentially win 50% of whatever the pot happens to be at the end of the evening. And then to cap off the evening, we will be having food trucks. Rascals will be there providing beer and wine for adults. And then the Apple Valley Arts Foundation will be sponsoring live music provided by the Riverside Hitmen. And then at 7 o'clock, there'll be a fireworks show that'll last approximately 20 to 25 minutes, and that will wrap up the evening. There will be a couple of bonfires set up. There'll be some propane heaters set up to help keep people a little bit warm. We're hoping for great weather and a great event. And so tell your friends, come and join us and have a great time.
Thank you. Councilmember Bergman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Eric, thanks to you and your department for this. It looks really interesting and fun. It's different, and different is good for the change. I'd also like to thank all the sponsors that did their due diligence to help this be a great event. So look forward to it. It should be a fun time and a different time. So thank you.
Councilmember Goodwin.
Well, Mr. Carlson, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but you're the one that picked this date, right?
That is correct. Well, okay, yes, I did.
I'm assuming. Now, today was very nice.
Yes, it was.
Yesterday was very nice. Monday, I was at Fort Snelling doing my honor guard stuff, and it was 8 below zero. Now, I assumed that when you picked this date, you would know that the temperatures would be fairly reasonable.
Historically speaking, the temperatures on this day are between 15 and 25 degrees, historically speaking.
You had an answer.
The best part is none of us can validate that information.
Well, I just didn't know if you felt any personal responsibility if it's a below zero day, your job would be in jeopardy or anything.
The weather will be what the weather will be. That's the one thing that we can't control.
Sound like you're from Minnesota.
We'll all be dressed for it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of this council, as Councilmember Bergman pointed out, and I want to make sure that we do a good job of recognizing our sponsors. So we have the Apple Valley Arts Foundation, again, sponsoring Riverside Hitmen. We have both of our local youth hockey associations donating cash to help make the event happen. And then the Apple Valley Rotary Club also donated cash. So the event wouldn't happen without their participation. We really want to thank them for that participation.
Great, thank you. This information on the website, available social media. How are we getting this out so people who maybe aren't tuning into this, I'm sure Nielsen, top of the charts broadcast this evening, can know about this?
Great question. It did hit our website today. The flyer is going to be on our social media sites. I know that our cable group is working on putting together a video promotion for the event. So social media sites, we also will be emailing this out to a lot of different groups and asking them to share this flyer with their emails that they may have. And we're also writing press releases to the local newspaper, including the Star and Tribune and the Pioneer Press. So trying to get as broad notoriety about the event as possible.
Yeah, very nice. And this is a 100% outdoor event. Just think you said it before, but I think, unlike past years where you had the community center open, those kind of things, right? Come prepared for the weather. You'll be outside.
Yep, wear your boots, wear your mittens, wear a hat, bring a scarf.
Cool. Councilmember Grindle.
Thanks. Thanks for the efforts of putting in and trying something new this year. And I have people asking me if the Apple Valley Arts Foundation is doing the Frozen Apple concerts. Is this a part of this, or, you know?
Yeah, so my understanding is the Apple Valley Arts Foundation has postponed some of their frozen apple concerts because of the COVID situation, which are held inside in the winter. This one is being held outside, obviously, and it's not technically a part of the Frozen Apple concert series, but again, the Apple Valley Arts Foundation is paying for and providing the band.
Okay. I'd heard they might be doing Bogarts in the afternoon, but I don't know that.
I'd not heard that either, so.
I will check with the foundation and try to help communicate what is happening with the community through the sources we have as well.
Perfect.
A lot of people enjoy those concerts.
Yep.
And, and we also want to make sure that we recognize the other departments that are participating. This isn't just a Park and Rec thing, this is a citywide thing. Our police department, our fire department are heavily involved in what's happening as well, as is Public Works, so.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Eric, are you still hunting for warming house attendants? How's your staff situation?
We are still looking for warming house attendants. Some of our sites are open, some of them are not. Some of our staff will be leaving back to college, so we may not be able to have all of the sites open that we'd like to have. So if there are people out there looking for a job for themselves or for one of their young people in the house, please have them contact us. We'd be happy to hire them.
I mean, we have other openings as well that are out on the website too for folks looking for things. So probably beyond just parks.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other staff comments? Nothing there. Anything from council? I don't see anything. I'm going to be serious for just a second, as hard as that can be for me, but we've had a handful of emails in the last day, both asking that we do and asking that we don't impose citywide mask mandates. And there's been enough of them. I just want to spend a minute and talk just about those. And in no order of importance, I certainly can't start this without talking about what the last 2 years have been, which is anything but easy on any of us. And those of us who have lost friends and loved ones through this, who have missed out on family things and all of that, right? These have been a couple very extremely difficult years. And of course, the end's been just around the corner for about 2 years, right? So I think that's been a little hard on all of us. With that, I think of those of our folks who have been kind of out in the front line with all of this. So our police and our firefighters in particular. We think a lot of our retail workers too, as they're out exposed to people. But every call, right, is an exposure. Every time that car window rolls down, every time you pull up on that accident scene or respond to a medical, those are there. And we know you guys are doing that. We know the toll that takes. And of course, you got family members sick or kids home and all those things too, just like everybody else does. But as I look at those, right, I think we only have to. We have to look at a couple things as we get those requests. One, can we even do that?
That's right.
I think our guidance from our city attorney is, despite how we feel as a statutory city, we probably don't have the authority to do it. And as I said earlier, we can probably do anything we want. It's a question of, can we enforce it? So even if we had the authority to do it, there's a pragmatic side of me that has to say, well, if I could do it, would it actually be effective? And then what do I do from there? I think you only had to turn the Vikings game on Sunday in a city that had a mask mandate to see probably wasn't all that effective as you looked around that stadium. I think of the toll again of those workers, and now we essentially move enforcement from our folks onto the employee that's standing at the window who has to ask somebody to get a mask on or to leave, and what that turns into. It's a real challenge for me to put forth any kind of recommendation that we have no shot at enforcing, right? That's just it seems like bad government to do those kind of things. But there are ways we can support those businesses who have every choice in the world to ask people to mask up. And I chatted with Bruce on this the other day. I know our community development staff stands ready to provide resources, to provide, get suggestions on signage, to connect them with the things they need. If the business is struggling, we've got open to business resources as well. There's a way we can support those who want to do that. And I know our police department stands there too, right? While they're not out there to enforce mask mandates, that business who says you can't come in without one, when somebody wants to be belligerent, wants to be difficult about that, wants to just not do the right thing and not honor that request, we'll be there to help people understand that if you don't want to honor it, go elsewhere. And so that's how we're ready to stand and support our businesses and our people. On the other side of that is, I think we've all learned a little bit in the last couple of years of if you're not feeling well, why don't you stay away from other people for a while till you do, right? Let's not make it worse. You've seen all of us masked up here tonight, probably more than we've been recently. We know what this most recent surge is. I'm a little hopeful that I think this was described by somebody who knows as a wildfire, not a slow burn, that we think will come out of this pretty quickly. But boy, it seems like we've been told that a lot over the last couple of years too. So I'm not quite sure what to believe. And my final ask would just, where whatever side of this thing you're on, just be a little kind to everybody else in this. We're all coming to this from a little different place and a little different experience. And I don't know that screaming at each other does a whole lot to further anybody's cause. And so sometimes it's okay to not say anything and just walk away too. So there's my thoughts on masks. Those are my thoughts, not council thoughts, not city thoughts, but my thoughts. And with that, Councilmember Goodwin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I think it would be good at this point to do maybe a little public education, because people are going to be kind of confused about this issue. People should understand there's different types of cities. There's cities called charter cities. Charter cities, two good examples, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Charter cities have powers in individual areas that we're called a statutory one city. It's a different kind of a city. Well, this is a question I had of our city administrator a few weeks ago. How in the heck can we even do stuff like this? We're not a charter city. Well, now we find out that, quote, a few cities have done it. They put on a mask mandate, or they haven't put on a mask mandate. And they're statutory cities. Now, let me just give you my input into this, being around for a little bit. I think there's sometimes city councils in other cities will make a political statement and they don't care what the law says. Maybe they didn't bother to ask their city attorney. Maybe their city attorney recommended to him and he decided to ignore it. But there's cities, in my view, that have asked for a mask mandate or have said they're not going to have a mask mandate, that had no power to do that because they're a statutory city. And they knew that, and they did it for political reasons, which I also don't think is a good thing.
Yep. Thank you. Any other, that's all I had. Just we've heard enough of it. I thought it was worth mentioning kind of a little of where we're at and discuss it just a bit this evening. So thanks for indulging that. Are there any other comments? If not, I almost forgot the calendar of upcoming events, but thankfully it's in front of me. So next item is to approve our calendar of upcoming events. Our next regular city council meeting is Thursday, January 27th at 7 p.m. I just offer a reminder that city offices are closed on Monday, January 17th in observance of the Martin Luther King holiday. With that, I would look for a motion to approve the calendar of upcoming events.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bergman, second by Grendall. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Goodwin, second from Grendall. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.